びの時代は終わる。
Hi guys, it's your boy Ambush Forever here, back with another video, and for today, I'll be doing a new part of What If Deku Had All the Breath Styles. I really hope you enjoy, and like I always say, like, comment, subscribe. But either way, let's begin the story. Last left off when Izuku faced off a demon Nomu. Izuku was really confused by this, because he thought that he himself defeated Muzan Kibutsuchi. So after the events of the USJ, what he did next was very like him. He essentially requested a meeting with Tanjiro and Kanao, including Nezuko, to which they all start to talk about what happened to the USJ. They talked about how the Nomu was like a demon, which Izuku said that the villain or handyman, as he said, was explaining how the Nomu was a demon, to which all of them were confused and shocked, to which because they know that Izuku defeated Kibutsuji Musan, so they don't really know how this could actually happen, to which they each ask themselves, oh, what are the possibilities and stuff like that, to which after for a long time, like about 3 to 4 hours, they eventually stopped and said that how about that take this as a pause for now. Let's talk about this later. Let's just keep it in the back of our minds and just essentially remember what will happen essentially or any possibilities like that. Which they all agreed and went to sleep. The next day was the normal school day, and when they arrived to school, they saw Aizawa, a little bit bandaged up, but not as heavily as in the canon. The reason why is because Aizawa isn't that, hurt than in the canon. So yeah. So Aizawa explains that this is the most important thing that they're going to do in their UA career, to which it was the UA Sports Festival. To which Aizawa explains that the UA Sports Festival is essentially separated into two things. Is for one is for quirk people like some of you, and the other part is for other demon slayers. It's essentially a way for other schools, even though it's called the UA Sports Festival, it's a way for other schools to know what they're essentially fighting as. If you guys remember what I said before, there are a lot of schools that teach breathing styles. So Izuku being a part of it will be a part of the essentially the demon slayer fighting ring. So as well as Tanjiro, Kano, and Nezuko. You might be wondering why Nezuko as well, because Nezuko isn't really considered having a quirk. So Nezuko is essentially having a not essentially a demon. So I would say that she would be perfect in the Demon Slayer stuff like that, the Demon Slayer tournament. So yeah, to which they had a week to train and a week to essentially recuperate from the event of the USJ. To which essentially they have 2 weeks, one for training and one for recuperating. To which Izuku facing a lot of, and I do mean a lot, of fights and death. Izuku knows that this is essentially normal for him. Not really normal, but he is getting used to it. It's just like it is a job. Sometimes you are too late for something and stuff like that. So for the training, Izuku, Tanjiro, Kana, and Nezuko were practicing using swordmanship. To which Izuku actually is teaching Nezuko how to use a sword, and not only to rely on essentially on her fist. And essentially Izuku essentially wanting to give Nezuko in a bit a essentially a style, so to which what would be the perfect style for Nezuko, which Nezuko thought about it for a second and actually thought of it as a Sakura style. To which Izuku, knowing all of the styles and actually making some of his own, actually taught Nezuko how to do the Sakura style. If you might be wondering what the Sakura style, well, the Sakura style is essentially more of, if you remember if you guys remember, there is a style. Well, there's not a style of it, but essentially the style is essentially being more catered to more on nature. So essentially grass type. So going with the flow, bending with the breeze and stuff like that, and the destructive power of nature essentially. So yeah. And a good thing about this is Sakura style has the essentially more like Gyu's uh 11th form of the water breathing essentially. So Sakura breathing has the almost the same but kind of different. It essentially makes some swords appear, to which if I be wondering how is that possible, well, essentially Izuku's teaching is a little bit different. It essentially insinuates essentially like if you have watched Bleach, the fight with Ichigo using Bankai, essentially that fight is a very good representation of it. So with the training, Izuku, Tanjiro, and Nezuko and Kanao finished their training and stuff like that, and actually had their me time, which the me time was essentially them going on a date. Yeah, them going on dates and so on. To which Nezuko was actually thankful for Zuko that she was actually get given the opportunity to actually train with the sword, because who would think that a demon would actually learn how to do demons breath styles to fight against demons? It's actually quite surprising. So yeah. So after that, well, Izuku managing to go on a date with Nezuko, and Kano and Tanjiro going on their date eventually arrived back home. I'm not gonna explain what happened on the date. It's just a typical date. Well, what you get, for example, just going out, having fun with their partner. So yeah. So what happens next is that they eventually sleep, and for the next day, it was the USJ, or not USJ, the UA Sports Festival, which Izuku went to Zenitsu and Inosuke, if you're wondering, what Zenitsu Junior, or the great grandson, or yeah, a lot of great grandson of Zenitsu and Inosuke, and as well as a lot of them. So I do mean a lot. So yeah. So for the fight, the first was an obstacle course. For to which, if you might be wondering, what kind of obstacle course is it? The same as the UA? No, actually. If you guys remember what Tanjiro had to went through when he was doing the going down the mountain, it's essentially the same. But the only difference is that, and it still had an incline and stuff like that. They actually made an incline about it, and the same with the atmospheric pressure. So it was hard to breathe, stuff like that, and it was actually quite tiring. So it essentially had the robots and stuff like that to insinuate as demons, and as well as obstacles like the log and stuff like that. So you guys may be wondering about that. So after that, they essentially just fight. Well, not really fight the robots essentially. What I do mean by that is just fighting the robots. And fighting the robots was actually quite easy for Izuku, because him have experience fighting against demons, which he uses a plethora of fightings of breath styles like water breathing, thunder breathing, as well as beast breathing. Beast breathing using for let's say echolocation and stuff like such, like spatial awareness. For thunder breathing, he used that for quick and essentially he used that for quick movements so that he could go down faster, and such. For the water breathing, he uses that for precision, because sometimes there is those types of robots that you had to have to hit in the certain spot so that it would be defeated. So like with that, and eventually with the obstacle, Izuku was eventually the winner. And you might be wondering why not Zenitsu, because he has thunder breathing. Because Zenitsu in this one, if you guys remember, Zenitsu was in the manga and anime, he was actually pretty good if you think about it. But this Zenitsu isn't really the same as the Zenitsu that we all know and love. It's more on the lines of he's a little bit not the same as Power, even though they think he's the same, they're not. Because Zenith this Zenitsu knows the thunder breathing styles and such, but the our Zenitsu, our normal Zenitsu, or our Demon Slayer Zenitsu, didn't actually know how to use all the breath styles except for one, which he knows, which is Thunderclap and Flash, and actually made it his own, and actually made his very own, and I do mean very own, thunder breathing style. Well, not thunder breathing style, but thunder breathing form, to which this Zenitsu Jr. hasn't really learnt it, you could say. So, for Inosuke, well, he isn't that, he's essentially the same with Inosuke in the manga and anime, because I would say because of the plethora of equipment that we have today, because Inosuke's essentially fighting style is more of brute strength. So I would say that because of the plethora of gymnasium and equipment that we have, I think he would be much more stronger than Inosuke from then than now, because because than Inosuke then is because the only thing that for Inosuke to actually be more better is because of that he wasn't, he was just raised in the wild. So yeah, that's the only problem. But other than that, he's actually an amazing fighter. So yeah, sorry for me ranting on. But the second place was surprisingly Zenitsu. Then after that is Nezuko, Tanjiro, and Kanao. Then Inosuke and the other demon slayers, you could say quote unquote demon slayers of third generation. To which Izuku got 1,000,000 points. It's essentially the same as the essentially, you could say, the UA Sports Festival. It's almost the same. But the next one was essentially you have to form teams of four. If you guys remember, this is essentially the golden number. Well, it was three, but come on. Well, yeah, it was four because if you guys remember, in the anime there were Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu plus Nezuko because she was in the box. So that's four. So they said that you have to form a squad and essentially or a group to fight to essentially defend the points. You can use any plethora of fighting styles that you want, as well as using your katanas or nichirin katanas, to which they all agreed. If you might be wondering, why are they using their nichirin katanas? Are they going to kill them or each other? Well, no, that's the only thing. The thing about the Nichiren katanas is, yeah, it's still a katana and stuff like that, but you're still gonna be injured. But it would be in the sense that it would be just a cut. But other than that, if you have the will, essentially, to essentially overpower all of the restraints that you have, it would be much appreciated by a lot of demon slayers there. So yeah, after that, well, Izuku managing to get Ned's essentially being a squad or a squad leader, he actually taught how to, well, essentially not taught but declared orders about what to do and stuff like that, and eventually them protecting everyone. But but one 2 minutes left, a person surprised them because they used water breathing. To Izuku's knowledge, it was only Tanjiro that knows water breathing and a little bit of the demon stairs, but other than that, he was actually confused. To which when he looks, it's Giyu, but not the same Giyu. It's essentially more of he's still stone cold and stuff like that, and doesn't relay emotion. He's like calm as the ocean or calm as water, which was confusing for Izuku and Tanjiro because they thought that Dio was in the past, to which Izuku immediately clicked his thoughts and eventually thought that it's just his descendant. To which, surprisingly, the squad were Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Giyu, as well as one other person, which was Shinobu, or the descendant of Shinobu essentially. I forgot the name. Sorry. I cannot actually pull up it right now because I think I deleted it. I'm really sorry about that. But other than that, I think I remember it. Them being Coluna or Stella. I forgot. But essentially, Miss Kocho. Let's just say that Miss Kocho. Miss Kocho was with Giyu or Giyu Junior and stuff, and was actually really confused. And Izuku essentially was having flashbacks of his training of Giyu, Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Shinobu were essentially attacking him. And it's the same position to which Izuku or essentially made a formation with essentially Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Kano of how to deal with this. And surprisingly, they won because even though they're outnumbered, because Izuku is still having the most points and they have to get it, Izuku eventually won and was actually surprised about this. They were, well, Izuku was still surprised that he would fare up with this generation's Demon Slayers. So yeah, but other than that, Izuku actually managed to actually surpass even the expectations of a lot of the teachers and starting wondering of who this kid is. All of the teachers, to which, yeah, it was still being broadcasted as well because a lot of the people are actually watching this because they want to see what essentially they're capable of. To which, yeah, Izuku was essentially becoming a fan favorite, stuff like that. So when it came to the final match, it was essentially a one-on-one. So the first fight was Izuku versus Giyu, to which Izuku, thinking of a strategy of how to beat Giyu's descendant, thought that it would be best that he would use insect breathing, surprisingly. To which Izuku using insect breathing against Giyu. To which it actually worked. It actually works for Izuku because with Izuku's quirk that he attained from talking to me, he essentially he manipulated his sword to be more of a rapier or like Shinobu's sword, the essentially tip and stuff like that. But it would be more on a rapier style than a one that Shinobu has. So when the fight began, Izuku, while fighting Giyu, actually was talking to him and actually asked that, "Are you the water pillar?" To which Giyu says, "What if I am?" To which Izuku said, "Well, that's surprising, to say the least, because you're the same as your grandfather." Well, you're the same as your grandfather. To which this caught Giyu off guard, and using that moment, Izuku essentially took his chance and actually knocked out Giyu. To which Izuku continues saying, "But Giyu, you were not the same as your grandfather." To which, yeah, that's he wouldn't, really be surprised and stuff like that. So yeah. So for your next fight, it was Nezuko versus Mitsuri. Yeah, Mitsuri. You might be wondering why Mitsuri is because of her descendant, or Mitsuri, or you could say the descendant's name is Zoe. Yeah, Zoe. The descendant of Mitsuri was called Zoe. So yeah. So with that fight, it was a breeze for Izuku. It was a breeze for Izuku's fight as well as Nezuko's because yeah, Nezuko having the ability to use um a breath style as well as a not well known breath style is actually surprising. To which Ezekiel only wrote the things that the Hashiras and what the essentially all of the people think of breathing styles are. So like example, thunder breathing, water breathing, insect breathing, mist breathing, air breathing, stone breathing, and such and such, because he wanted to make it to where that it was the same as what it is back in the era of Demon Slayer. So with that, Izuku actually was using a lot of essentially not that well known type of bread styles or other variations of the bread styles, as well as making some of his own. So yeah, but for Tanjiro, when it came to Tanjiro versus Inosuke, yeah, Inosuke, because in the manga, in the anime, Inosuke wants to fight Tanjiro again. So yeah, this is gonna be surprising. So to that fight, I would say Tanjiro would actually beat Inosuke by the sheer power of using sun breathing with a mixture of water breathing, because this is a Tanjiro that mastered what sun breathing. So it wouldn't be far fetched to think that Tanjiro wouldn't win, because sun breathing was actually pretty powerful, and do mean really powerful breathing stuff. So yeah, so the next one is Kanao actually versus Miskocho, or Shinobu's descendant. To which, surprise, surprise, Kanao was actually nervous about this. She actually almost lost about about her fight, because of the resemblance of Miss Kocho to Shinobu. To which, yeah, to which she always thinks that it was always her sister and stuff like that. So Izuku per se, but Tanjiro actually managed to snap um Kana out of her, thinking, and actually defeated Miss Kocho. To which Miss Kocho actually uh, uh essentially surprisingly gave Kana some tips, as well as recognition of how great she is, which Kana accepted greatly. To which the next fight, oh yes, the air pillar. To which the air pillar, this is against Izuku. You might be wondering what's the name. It's gonna be called Ace. Yeah, sorry about that. But the name was Ace. This was descendant of, I forgot what the name was, but who cares? Because, well, it was one of my favorite characters, but he became not because of, he's essentially just like Bakugo, which in the early stages I didn't really like Bakugo. So yeah. But Izuku actually fighting this, having flashbacks, him essentially stab Nezuko. So yeah, that essentially made him to where to use sun breathing, and actually defeated him without any hesitation. So yeah, and for the next fight, Nezuko Kano and Nezuko Kano, and as well as Tanjiro actually managed to eliminate their opponent and stuff like that. To which now on to the semifinals. The semifinals is actually surprising. To which it was Zenitsu versus Zenitsu versus Izuku. Yeah, Zenitsu versus Izuku. To which Zenitsu actually was actually quite a fair challenge for Izuku. Not really in the sense of the same as Zenitsu, but it was still a challenge because it's essentially a thunder breathing user. So yeah, it would be a little bit more difficult. So, but Izuku managing to use thunder breathing as well actually defeated Zenitsu. So yeah, to which for Tanjiro's fight, well, he actually managed to defeat his. To which now it's time for the finals. Well, not really finals, but grand finale. But the finals essentially. So the finals was essentially Izuku versus Tanjiro and Nezuko versus Kana, which To which this actually was actually a very, very close match. And obviously Izuku came out on top, but for the other side, it was actually Kano, not Nezuko, surprisingly, because Kano actually was actually meticulous about this and thought that eventually that she was going to fight Nezuko, and given the chance, she made preparations. So yeah, but now it was the last fight, which was Nezuko, well, not Nezuko, um, Kana versus Izuku, to which Izuku using a plethora of moves, or well, not moves, but a plethora of styles like music style and stuff like that. The evolution of sound breathing from Tengen or Uzui, as well as a sun breathing, air breathing, love breathing, and sakura breathing, managed to defeat Kano. Not managed, well, actually defeat Kano, to which Kano actually put up a great fight, actually improving a lot of her skills and skill set. To which the leader, the quote unquote leader, or the leader the of this was Mr. Kibutsuchi. If you guys didn't know, the Kibutsuji line is essentially all the essentially the masters of the Demon Slayer in the Demon Slayer core is a Kibutsuji. So a good example for this is Kibutsuji Muzan is a part of that actually family. So yeah. So Mr. Kibutsuji actually gave Izuku the medal as first place, to which Izuku was actually quite surprised about this and actually wary of Mr. Kibutsuji. It doesn't know why, but he feels something off. To which, yeah. Other than that, he doesn't really mind it that much. To which they all celebrated about his victory, as well as Class 1A. To which, eventually they went home and actually celebrated with Inko. And eventually, for that day, while Izuku was going to sleep, he thought about the feeling that he received from Mr. Kibutsuji. It was a little bit ominous and weary, and eventually he fell asleep. And that's it. I really hope you enjoy this story. And sorry for me ranting a lot, and sorry for the background noise that was on the background. But other than that, I really hope you enjoy. And like I always say, like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys later. Bye.